And some of those answers have me a little worried. So we're gonna cover how to properly identify and evaluate your images. First things first, what do we have to do? And the ribs.
Thank you.
Shield. No, when we're identifying, when we're looking at the image already.
Make sure you have all the anatomy that's.
Make sure the chest.
It says
First rib, the costophrenic
So
angle.
number one, identify projection and objective, right? When you look at an image, the first thing that you should do is identify what the heck am I looking at? So what projection is this?
What do you mean by
PHS.
objective, ma'am?
Objective as in why do you think a person would get a chest x-ray, or what are we looking at?
Reason for that.
Yes. So we already said this is a PA chest, and we know that because most chests are supposed to be done PA. If it's done AP, usually they will have a little marker that says AP or portable or whatever the case may be. If it doesn't, it's safe to assume that it's a PA chest. So if the image didn't have a marker, what's another way to kind of identify if it's a AP or PA?
The clavicles.
Clavicle, what about the clavicle?
If they're
More horizontal.
above the APCs, that means there is AP.
Mm-hmm.
If it's below, it's
Oh,
PA.
yeah.
Okay, what else?
More so.
Samantha?
She got what I was gonna say. I look at the clavicles and see how, if they're above the APCs, and yeah, she got
Okay.
it.
Reagan said heart shadow. If it's a PA chest, the size of the heart should look very close to the actual size. If it's an AP, you will notice that the heart shadow is actually enlarged. Another thing that we can look at to see if it's AP or PA.
With the heart, I think they said not to go by that because
The
sometimes
ribs.
Thank you.
they could be.
What about the ribs?
If it's AP, they'll be shorter and wider.
Shorter and wider. How?
Did I say that right? That's what I got on my lecture yesterday from Mr. Fung. I might have wrote it wrong, but that's what he said. Well, you know, they'll be yeah, that's what he told me.
Do you see less?
The ribs would be projected differently.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
so
I forgot.
to my knowledge, if the easy way to identify if it's PA is that if you're PA, your posterior ribs are closer to the source, right?
Mhm.
So posterior ribs tend to be a little bit more kind of like horizontal looking versus AP. So if you take a look here, it's kind of going almost straight across. It's not coming down and out to the side. But I don't really like using that technique because people's ribs look kind of wonky, so I don't like using that technique. Number two, understand the structure shown. If you're taking an x-ray, you have to know what structures you're looking at, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So for a proper chest x-ray, what do we need to see? 10 ribs, which tells us what? Good inspiration, okay. Ideal inspiration is one time or two times? Two times. And then APCs, I heard APCs.
Yes.
Schizophrenic angles.
Yeah.
What else?
Air-filled
Air-filled trachea, good.
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
And the
then
scalp out the way.
we're talking about anatomy.
Oh, okay.
And then we should be able to see the thoracic, or the cervical and the thoracic.
Mm-hmm.
We should be able to see the sharp outline of the heart, correct? Let's see. Scapula's out the way. On this one, it's really not too much out of the way because I can see the medial border of the scapula in the lung field. If it's properly out of the way, if the patient had their arms out, it would have been out of the lung field.
Is that Mary Hill?
No.
No, that's just a random x-ray.
Ma'am, will we get this in the PowerPoint from you?
Yes, Shaheen.
I did not
I'm gonna
want-
put that under your picture in the yearbook.
No,
We
I
get
don't-
the PowerPoint.
Because then I won't bother to write.
Hey, at least that's your own quote.
So then I won't write. All this is we get right. So that's
Okay, so now that we've identified some of the structures, yes, Jay?
This is to go back to the last point that we made, but could we also use the gastric bubble to see whether or not it's an AP or a PA?
You can, but on very few patients, remember their anatomy could be flipped.
The contra.
That is a good thing, but I wouldn't rely completely on that.
Well, that's
Summit?
like that would work the same way with the heart shadow. too,
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, so that some patients do have what's it called?
Contra something.
No, when the anatomy is flipped.
Start the D.
Idiopathic.
Let's start the D
Somebody find it for me. It's gonna drive me crazy.
or start the B.
At number 3, after we identified the anatomy that we're looking at, we can then use our evaluation criteria. Now, your criteria, it can either be a good thing or a bad thing, which basically tells you what you're looking for in order to be like, this image is good, this image is bad. So when you're doing your portfolios, if you're telling me this image is unacceptable, then you have to tell me, critique the image as to why it's
It's
bad.
called dextrocardia, when the heart's on the other
Yeah, that's
side.
what I was like.
What's it called?
Dextrocardia, when the heart's on the other side.
Sinus
Oh,
inversus.
situs inversus, that's the term that I was looking for, when their anatomy is flipped.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you also check by the heart? Because the right heart, I mean not the heart, the lung, the right lung is always shorter, right? Shorter than the left.
Yes, so on most patients, the right lung should be higher because of the what?
The heart's not.
The
Liver.
liver pushing up on it. So that's another good way to tell also. Good one, John.
Which one has 2 lobes? The left?
I wanna say the right has 2 and the left has 3.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so let's take a look at this image. First things first, what did we do? Based on what we just went over.
Identify the projection.
Okay, so what projection is this?
PHS.
VHS, okay. Next thing to evaluate this image, where should we center on a chest?
T7.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, go Sarah.
That one, the ribs go down a lot, right? A lot more than the previous one.
Yeah, on this patient, the ribs are not as horizontal, they're kind of coming down and out. Collimation, how should our collimation be for a chest x-ray?
As open as possible.
Depends on the anatomy.
14 by 17, lengthwise usually, but if they're hypersthenic, it can be crosswise 17 by 14. Structure shown, we already went over that. And then evaluation criteria. Under this, there are several that you can use, such as spatial resolution, which is what? Uh-oh.
Fine detail.
The ability to see detail. So what kind of detail should we see on a chest x-ray?
Fine.
Trust the hair black for the hair and white for the blood.
That's contrast. I'm talking about the details you should see.
Fine detail.
Or do you
What are these? The hilar region where you see what? The pulmonary vascular markings, which is the bronchial trees. What else? You should be able to see the shadow of the ribs through the lungs, right? You should be able to see the outline of the heart. What else?
The angles.
Different angles, apices. You should be able to see some of the spinous processes. You should be able to see the thoracic vertebrae through the shadow of the heart. So that tells me this image has pretty good detail sharpness. Contrast and density. How do we identify if an image had enough KVP and mass, or the technique was good?
Yes, value.
It's not burnt out.
The difference between the
If it's not
bone
burned out, but digital kind of corrects all
Auto-
mistakes, remember? So
Auto
how do we
rescale-
identify?
rescaling.
S values, hello, it's on the
I said
slide.
S value.
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
pointed to.
So for a chest x-ray, what is the ideal range?
Just say number 40.
Wait, only for chest
I
X-ray?
think it's like
180.
200 to 600 or something.
200 is 600.
Or 800.
I want to say you're right, but we'll get to that in a second. How do we check for rotation?
Because when the lateral, the back should be straight.
We're not talking about the lateral, right?
Or for the AP.
Yes.
There should be, or it should be equal. no?
Okay. Spinous process should be in the middle of the X-ray. Okay, that's a good way. What's another way?
Elongation, like if one side is longer than the other side.
You can take a look at how the ribs are on either side. If one side looks longer, you can tell that the patient was in an oblique. Motion, how can we tell if there's motion? There's going to be blur, yes. That's pretty much it. Artifacts, obviously, you're gonna look for anything that doesn't belong in the chest X-ray, jewelry, metal, clothing, whatever the case may be. And then distortion, what are the two terms to describe?
Elongation and, elongation and shortening.
Foreshortening and elongation. Sorry, I didn't mean to say no. So elongation is when something seems stretched, and then foreshortening is when something is shrunk. Alright.
Ma'am, I have a question for
Yes.
you on, when you first showed the picture, you said, what is it, PA or, so everybody said PA, you know it's PA, but why did we say it's PA?
Why do we say it's PA?
Yes, so by looking at it, what is telling you that this image is PA?
So, first of all chest X-rays, if it's not portable, we can assume safely that it was done PA, right? Also, you see the marker up here?
It says left.
Left, and this is as though the patient is looking at you right now. So we know that his left side is over here, right side's over here.
Right side.
Not only that, look at how the heart is. The heart is
Heart's on the
always
left side.
turned to the left, correct? Unless they have
Patient.
situs inversus. And then we can also see the air bubble on the left, which
So
tells
it's
us.
the left side of the patient, the heart is,
Mhm.
but then the patient is looking at us,
So if I'm
Okay.
looking at you right now, my heart's gonna go this way.
it's on left side. So you're looking at me, then you're, it's not PA, then you're EP. That's what
So
I'm saying.
you are the detector. The patient is against the detector, right, during a PA?
I hope so.
So, so if you guys are the detectors and the patient's looking at you, this is what you should see.
Oh, I see. But the IR, you mean, the detector.
Yes. So we already identified this is the chest, central ray. On your images, a good way to check it is if you draw a line to this corner and another line from this corner to that corner. The point where it meets should be somewhere around T7. It doesn't have to be exact, but that's just a way for you to check if it is a good centered image. Right now, it looks like the patient was a little to the right. But since it's not excessive, it's not a terrible image. Collimation, 14 by 17 lengthwise. What about the edges? 1 inch. 1 inch beyond lateral shadows.
What do you mean by that, ma'am?
So on the edges here, there should only be 1 inch of light.
After the structure,
After
the
the
anatomy.
anatomy. We already covered structure shown in a VHS X-ray. We see the airflow trachea, right? What else do we see? We see the lungs with full inspiration. We see definitely at least 10 ribs. We see the heart shadow. We see vascular markings. We see apices, costophrenics, diaphragm domes. On some images, it can be clearly visible with like a white line, but not necessarily on every chest X-ray. Alright. Evidence of proper collimation. How, for example, if you were up here doing your presentation, how will you defend that this image has proper collimation?
there's no more than an inch on both sides and
Good.
no more than 2 inches above the diameter of interest.
Perfect. That's it. Evidence of a side marker. It's gonna be clearly evident with your initials. And then S values, 200 to 600, like, who said it? You said it? Good job. Rotation, we can take a look at the sternal ends of the clavicles. Make sure that they're equal distance from each other. There is no motion, there is no artifacts, and I don't see any distortion.
I have a question.
So this
Yes,
So for the previous image, do we, for example, if I count, I think it counts to like T7
Mhm.
or T8 or 9 where the centering is.
Mhm.
So would that be one mistake?
yeah, that would be one mistake. And if your marker didn't have your initials, that would be another mistake.
But we don't use the image without a marker, right?
Correct, I'm
Oh.
just saying.
In real life.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, any questions so far?
So the image was unacceptable.
It had 1, 2, it was acceptable, or it is acceptable.
So for project purposes,
Mm-hmm.
2 images is acceptable, 2 mistakes is acceptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 mistake is optimal.
Optimal should have 0, but if you put an image up there and I find 1, it's not gonna count against you. Does that make sense?
You can have a maximum of
I'm just trying to
one.
figure out how we gonna do it.
You can do it.
So like when you give us the
So,
picture,
yeah.
like to evaluate it, so we should have these types.
Especially the combination.
Yes. And I'll send you this PowerPoint so you don't have to memorize all this. Alright, so let's evaluate this image as a class.
That is,
I'm gonna pick on somebody,
That's it.
so you can defend
That's
it.
rude.
Defend what?
Like whatever you categorize it as.
Someone else's image.
Angelica,
unacceptable.
okay, tell me why.
They do it like they do it at LBJ, just keep it
Oh,
wide open.
Okay.
No collimation.
Collimation, it's evident that it's open more than 1 inches, okay, what else?
The marker.
Marker, there's no initials, okay, that's 2.
That's it. That's all I got.
Give me more than 2 for an unacceptable.
Centering.
Off-center?
Yeah.
It does look off-centered because there's more space on the
one side
left
than the
than the
other.
right.
Yeah.
Y'all see that?
They didn't move the arms. Yeah.
Yeah, the arms, the scapula is not out of the way of the lungs. Yep, so this is definitely unacceptable.
And I don't think they see the SC joint.
Yep. On this one, it's a little bit more open than the
And the other
left.
one, yeah,
So
so they're
yeah,
not equidistant.
there's some rotation going on
Why,
there also.
why can you see the scapula on the lung, ma'am? On
Where
this
can I
side.
see it?
On this side, on the left side.
You see this,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
and then you see this right here.
So it's just
So-
normally with the thing, hands.
If your arms were properly out of the way or doing the chicken wing, it should lift it out of the way. Alright, good job. Lateral chest x-ray. Central ray stays where? T7 MCP. How's the collimation?
Could be size could be better.
Could be better. Structure shown on a lateral chest x-ray, kind of similar. You should see the air-filled trachea. Where is my trachea on this image? Which one?
In front of the that one.
This one?
No.
This one?
E,
No.
Yes, it is. So if this is the trachea, what's this?
Esophagus.
Yes, thank you, Jesus. Alright, we should see, at least 10 ribs, even though it may be faint on the lateral. We should see the heart shadow. And then you can even see some of the aorta structures, not on this screen, but on the TV, you should be able to see it. Criteria is the same, marker, collimation, you should see apices to costophrenic angles, and then also the lungs should not be obscured by the arms and the shoulders, meaning the arm was properly lifted out of the way.
Is that the marker, ma'am?
No, that is actually an artifact. What is it?
A tattoo.
The bra, the back of the bra.
It's the snap.
Remember, there's the metal hooks.
Yeah, I said that's.
It's not a tattoo. Tattoos don't show up like this.
If so, that's a
If so,
Bad
yeah.
tattoo, bro. Let me tell you, that
If so,
artist
you
must
got
have
a
hated
really bad
that.
tattoo.
Made 'em mad.
And is it rotated?
Yes. How can we tell rotation on this image?
Because
The
the back
ribs.
is
The
slightly
ribs.
curved.
Lines.
Because the ribs are not superimposed, which tells us there's rotation.
The bit, where are the two pictures seen? The one in the front and the back?
See this set of ribs and this set of ribs, there should not be that much of a gap.
I see.
Alright, y'all getting it, kind of? Yes.
Hey, I just had a question on rotation, and I don't know where I read it or something, but pretty much that's about the max allowance of allowable rotation, correct?
The rule of thumb is it shouldn't be more than your fingernail.
And that's when we're looking at the image, like on our screen?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But when is rotation acceptable on a patient?
When the patient's, a doctor means online.
Be more specific.
What was
When
the
the patient can't move, okay, what's another?
Or wobbly,
Well,
not can't
you come
stand?
Like a
pediatric?
lateral chest? Is it
Yes.
gonna be-
And they can put all their arms on.
when they
We
do-
already established patient status. They're not feeling well, whatever pain. What's another situation?
If it's
Oh,
a
fatigue.
child.
That's the same thing. Patient
Common
status.
one,
If
they
it's a
not
child?
stand.
No.
Physical disability.
Think pathology.
Oh, pathology.
Oh.
Shortness of breath.
Scoliosis.
Yes, scoliosis. So when their spine is curved, most likely you will not be able to get a perfect lateral.
I got a good one. You wanna see it? I'll show you.
Scoliosis?
Yeah, and I had a good lateral.
Okay, I'll see it.
They have a very bad scoliosis.
They were trying to fix it, so he had to rise it up.
Oh.
Alright, so now that we went over the lateral chest, let's do this as a class. Who shall I pick on? Johnson's like, don't pick me. Janelle, you look ready.
Janelle's always ready to start that.
Always ready.
So bad.
Yep.
Some blur.
Okay, rotation, explain to me how you know that.
The longer, bigger than a fingernail on the spine.
Okay, good.
The blur.
Where do you see the blur?
Oh, I was looking at
It's fuzzy.
the right edge. And then,
Over here?
yeah,
Okay.
and then, yeah, no. I think that's it.
Okay, what else can we say about this image?
Their marker doesn't have an initial.
Marker doesn't have an initial, okay.
Marker should be in the front. Of the-
Yeah.
It should be in the
Yeah.
front, okay. What about, full inspiration? Did we achieve that? I think we did.
Yeah.
Yes.
We could have done better.
Because there's right to the
Take a
front.
deeper breath.
What about, detail sharpness?
No, sharp, you should increase the contrast and stuff.
Contrast could be better. It's not terrible, but it could be better. Any artifacts? We don't see any. Any distortion? Maybe some slight distortion in the front. I don't know what's going on over there. Yeah, good job. Anything else?
What is always coming in the front, ma'am? It's the breast and then on top of the
Breast
breast.
tissue.
Or does this breast tissue also the whites on the top of the breast?
Yes, I'm assuming it's breast tissue because I don't see anything else that tells me it's something else.
Should you be able to see the arm?
If the collimation is longer than 17 inches, you will see the arms. So which tells me it was left open.
It doesn't go over 17, right?
Is that the clavicle that?
Sometimes if you like overwrite it, it can. Or they probably centered it too high.
Ma'am, is that the clavicle showing that way? It should not be always showing, right?
Where's the clavicle?
That thing going across.
Shani, where is your clavicle?
Clavicle is here.
So
Clavicle's
how can the
popping out.
clavicle stick out like that? That's the arm.
Your
Oh,
humerus.
Oh, that's the humerus.
That's a real bad fracture.
So ma'am,
Yes,
that's a,
that's the arm.
Real bad fracture.
and that is okay to see. You see, that's not.
It's not okay because that should be collimated out of the way.
I
Unless
see.
your patient can't stand for too long. Or hold up the bars for too
I
long.
already gave up. I'm working on a t-shirt.
Alright. Attention please, Melanie.
Shots fired.
So earlier I said that AP versus PA, you can take a look at the heart shadow, correct?
Right.
Does everyone understand how that works?
Yeah.
Because PA, your heart is where?
Left.
Closer to the detector. AP, the heart is closer to the X-ray tube, right? So on the top here, AP projection, the heart is closer to our X-ray tube. And because of beam divergence, y'all should be familiar with this term, that's how the heart appears enlarged on AP projections. And PA, the heart is closer to our detector, right? And it's a narrow beam, therefore it should represent the heart closer to its true size.
Yeah, smaller.
This is just an FYI, you don't have to remember this. So, AP, look how the heart looks very enlarged, right?
Yes.
And same patient, PA chest X-ray looks a lot better. The heart doesn't look as enlarged. Overall quality is much, much better.
What?
What is what?
Airfield.
This right here?
Yeah.
That, I believe, is a portacat.
A what?
A portacat. A little port. Okay.
Ma'am, can you point at it? Can you point at the portico?
Right here,
Oh, this
the
is.
circle,
Yeah, ma'am.
you can see the kind of tubing that's coming down.
And this is for putting, I think you put, I don't know what portico.
Portacat is used to give the patient medication. It can be used to draw blood, different things like that.
It's in the tissue, it's not on the.
It's under the tissue,
Could you
yes.
pull the S value thing back up?
Yes,
Thank you.
y'all can, don't have to take a picture of this, I'll send it out.
Thank you for confirming that.
Yes. Oh, you're being funny.
And we must learn this us.
Yes, you should have the S values in mind. Alright, what's next on the agenda?
I can ask you with a straight face.
Yeah. Any questions so far? Did y'all like how I explained?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are we gonna go over like most of the anatomy like that, or only chest?
So whenever we do the chest and abdomen lecture, I will go into detail. Was that your question?
I'm talking like for example, what's the perfect elbow supposed to look like, or perfect forearm
Oh,
supposed to look
yeah, it's
Oh, like, will I show you examples of a perfect elbow?
like? Of all the anatomy.
I will.
Okay.
We're gonna like critique it like.
Yes. And this was kind of an example of how your tests will be. Are y'all listening?
Yeah.
What did I say?
This was an example of how you
I said this was an example of how your tests will be. So I will give you images and I will have you critique them, and then you have to defend why you said what you said.
Oh, are these really
No multiple choice?
They're just blank.
Multiple choice?
Okay, now we have to tell you which one. Sweet Lord.
So just a really quick question, some of these images were acceptable, right? And those were the exact same images that you gave us on the sheet paper yesterday?
Yeah, these were the exact same.
So we're not worried about the marker, right? Cause I put unacceptable for all of them, cause I just like seen the digital marker and I said, well,
That's what Mr. Donahue keeps
yeah,
harping.
so he keeps saying like, you know, you see the marker, that's it, throw it out. So,
Well, this is my class, so.
no, I know, it's like, you're not worried about the marker, right, on your chest, like, that's not even like a reasoning why we should.
No, if you do see a marker without, for example, initials, or if you see that it's a digital marker, you can use that as a reason.
It would be
Okay.
unacceptable. That's
As a reason to say,
Or-
this is an error, which is why I'm saying it's acceptable or
It
unacceptable.
can be taken as one of them.
Okay. So you can be like, everything's good, the only thing would be this. But it's still acceptable.